I'm Alice and Arnold Clausen's nephew. I grew up on the farm. I started as a very little kid. My mom and I would just spend weekends out there living in Spokane. That farm has been a big part of my life, and have always kind of had a keen interest in the farm, both for it as a farm, a working farm, but also as this amazing piece of open space. Alice was always very much interested in the habitat and wildlife, and so over the years that was always really her love, was being out on the farm. And my uncle was a product of the 1940s and 50s, increasing mechanization and increasing use of fertilizers and chemicals on the farm, and it was all about production. My uncle wanted to, there's a bit of a wet spot, so let's drain the water out of that. And she's like, no, why don't we plant trees in that spot? And so the two of them always had this bit of a tussle. After my uncle passed away in 2011, she's had until 2020 to really think about how she wanted to put her impression onto the farm in an enduring way, and that's what led us to put conservation easements in place over the entire farm in 2018.
What were the meaningful moments that led Alice to, in addition to putting conservation easements on her land, to decide to put the Conservancy into her estate plan?
Farming is not an easy business whatsoever, but there were some good years in the 70s, and so they got ahead. And so part of that was they invested very well, and because they kept their costs really low, there was some excess resources available in their IRA accounts that they didn't need to use during their lifetime. They had decided back in 2011 that they would leave those for charitable purposes.
Tell me about what that farm is going to look like in 100 years.
Alice's broad vision, and I don't even know if she fully believed we could achieve it, but we're going to have a go at doing it, was that she wanted to know that wildlife could safely travel between the Turnbull Wildlife Reserve to the west and the mountains of North Idaho to the east. And so her land sits directly in that corridor. And that was essentially why the Northern Palouse Legacy Fund, why those funds are there to help the Conservancy then work with additional landowners in the area and make it possible to keep expanding on, I think, this very simple idea is, can we preserve a belt between the Turnbull Wildlife Preserve and the mountains of North Idaho?
If you were going to encourage someone else to include Inland Northwest Land Conservancy in their estate planning, what would you tell them?
It's always good to understand what your own goals are. They could be about preserving habitat. It could be about preserving it as farmland. I think farming families need to take a serious look about, if they want the next generation to farm, the aspect that a conservation easement assists with is holding that land value in a restricted sense so that your next generation can afford to farm. But I've found the Conservancy staff are incredibly helpful, and they're patient. It will take people time, so don't hurry. Take the time it takes to come to full understanding of what it means to have the conservation easement in place, as well as what you expect to see achieved, not just today, but in the future.